This whole story really, it comes down to two numbers, just two. But they're simple, they're stark, and they expose a massive failure in the system. Let's get right into it.
First up, 139. That is the number of days, straight, that a home sharing provider gave round-the-clock essential care to a high-needs client after the system that was supposed to be responsible for them just vanished. 139 days. Just think about that for a second.
And the second number? It's zero. As in $0 in pay, zero professional recognition, zero organizational backup for all that work. For 139 days, the system's total contribution was a big, fat zero.
So let's be crystal clear right from the start, because this really frames our whole explainer. This is not some private disagreement or a simple billing dispute. The source material makes it painfully obvious this is a total breakdown of a public care system's most basic, fundamental duties.
So how did we even get here? Well, let's rewind to December 2023. This is where it all begins. And the problem starts when a contract ends, but the very real 24/7 human need for care, well, that doesn't just hit pause for paperwork. So the gap appears almost instantly. An agency, IFRC, finishes its contract and boom, the payments just stop. The provider immediately reaches out to both IFRC and Community Living BC, that's CLBC, the provincial body that holds the purse strings, and asks, hey, what's the plan? The response? Just bureaucratic noise. Vague stuff like, we're looking into it. But back at the house, a person with severe needs requires constant around-the-clock supervision. The formal chain of responsibility is broken, and suddenly the provider becomes the only, completely unpaid, safety net.
Okay, so we roll into January, and by this point, the silence from the system is just deafening. A new month starts, a new year even, but absolutely nothing changes. The provider is now shouldering the entire weight of this care, and they are completely on their own.
And this right here, this just perfectly shows the disconnect. On paper, the system is busy considering options, but in reality, inside that home, it's sleepless nights. It's constantly having to de-escalate crises. The client's condition is actually getting worse, showing deep behavioral regression. This isn't some abstract service provision on a spreadsheet. This is the intense, draining work of a specialist, a mental health worker, and a nurse, all rolled into one person who's getting no salary and has absolutely no backup.
By February, the whole situation just spirals. It's not just about a lack of support anymore. It has become a full-blown financial crisis for the provider, and frankly, an impossible ethical dilemma.
And here's the brutal financial picture. The provider's expenses for the client's food, their medication, all their daily needs, they're just climbing and climbing. And it's all coming out of their personal savings. Meanwhile, this system's payments, they're holding steady at zero. There's no timeline, no commitment, and absolutely no guarantee that this work will ever be paid for.
This is what's known as a moral trap. What do you do? If you continue providing care, you are heading straight for financial ruin and serious burnout. But if you stop, you abandon a vulnerable person who relies on you for everything, potentially exposing them to very serious harm. The system has basically just dumped its entire responsibility onto this one household, forcing a truly impossible choice.
We get to March, and things get even worse. We're now 3 months in. The system hasn't just stopped paying, it has completely abandoned its role of oversight. It has, for all intents and purposes, vanished.
This image really says it all, doesn't it? The provider has become the only thing, preventing a vulnerable person from falling through these gigantic cracks that have opened up in the system. They are completely and utterly alone.
And you can measure this collapse of oversight in zeros. For 139 days, zero required safety checks, zero offers of emergency respite care, zero monitoring from a behavior consultant. On paper, sure, the client is supported by the system, but in reality, the system was nowhere to be found.
And we have to be really clear about this. This isn't just some hypothetical risk. The source material points to a tragic precedent here. A similar failure of institutional oversight in another CLBC case actually led to the death of Florence Girard. So this proves that when the system disappears, the consequences can be fatal.
So, finally, in mid-April, something happens. A new contract gets signed and the funding restarts. But the way this gets resolved just adds a whole new layer of injustice to the story. So here's the system's big solution. Funding's back on, but only from mid-April moving forward. What about the 139 days of crisis? The debt they racked up? The immense personal risk they took? All of it is just ignored.
No back pay. Not even an acknowledgement. It's as if those 139 days literally never happened.
Let me just say that again, because it's so important. The system's solution was to stabilize the future by simply and effectively erasing the past, all 139 days of that unpaid, essential work.
And this brings us right to the heart of it all, the question of accountability. What happens when a system fails this badly and then just refuses to even acknowledge it?
This table right here, this is the final report card. 139 days of care provided, $0 paid, 0 transition plans put in place, 0 backup providers offered. This is the brutal final summary of the system's performance.
So I'll just ask you directly, what do you call this? Is this a glitch in the system? A minor bureaucratic oversight? Or is this what systemic neglect actually looks like? And maybe the most important and frankly the scariest question is this. If a failure this complete can happen once, what is there to stop it from happening all over again to another client and another provider tomorrow? The provider realized that if the system wasn't going to recognize this essential work, well then that recognition had to be demanded. And so this story isn't over, not by a long shot. They are now taking their claim for those 139 unpaid days to court.